Hey, I'm Professor Wiseguy with another 5-minute fix. This time we'll be looking at how you can avoid mistakes with apostrophes. Apostrophes can seem tricky, but if you follow a few simple rules, then Bob's your uncle. Bob's your uncle? Why did I say that? Oh, never mind. Let's move on. Apostrophes need to be used for just a couple of things. Apostrophes show that letters have been left out of something. Now, leaving letters out is more of a talking thing than a writing thing, but we often do it in less formal writing. Now, this one is easy, and it shows its head most often with contractions. We could say, Bob is your uncle, but most likely, especially if we're talking, we'll say, Bob's your uncle. The contraction, of course, takes the name Bob and sort of melts the verb is into it. The I is left out, replaced by the apostrophe. Other examples might include, it is good to see Uncle Bob, which becomes, it's good to see Uncle Bob. Or, I am wishing I did not have an Uncle Bob, which transforms to, I'm wishing I didn't have an Uncle Bob. That was a twofer. Besides contractions, we might leave out letters when we're speaking very informally. Uncle Bob's going to the store 'cause he wants grapes. This one usually shows up only when we're writing dialogue, but it's the same principle. That brings us to our first rule. When you leave letters out, you mark that with an apostrophe. That's the first big use of apostrophes. Let's move on to number 2. Apostrophes help us show that nouns are possessive. This one's a little more complicated, and the rules aren't even completely consistent. What I'm going to share is American usage as described in most handbooks. If Bob is my uncle, then I can say, I am Bob's nephew. See what I did there? I took the name Bob and added apostrophe-s to it to make it possessive. In some languages, we'd have to say, I am the nephew of Bob. But English gives us this handy little shorthand. I am Bob's nephew. Basically, you can add an apostrophe-s to the end of nearly any name or other noun to make it possessive. For example, my uncle's face, the garden's soil, the chicken's beak. This leads us to our next rule. Use apostrophe plus s to make any noun into a possessive. But wait, it's English, so there's got to be an exception, which is a continuation of rule number 2. Unless that noun already has an s or z at the end, then add just an apostrophe at the end. You'll see that this one takes care of most plurals. Here are some examples. Tina Lopez's garden, the gas's octane, the 3 chickens' beaks. Now, that's hopefully not too complicated. Let's review. Add an apostrophe-s to any noun to make it a possessive, unless the noun already ends in s or z, in which case you just add the apostrophe. Those are the 2 main ways we use apostrophes. But there is a third which doesn't even rise to the level of half a way. Use an apostrophe in a plural only when it would be confusing otherwise. Now, what does that mean? Basically, it means that you'll very rarely need to use an apostrophe to show that something is plural. But here's a good example. Uncle Bob dotted all the I's. Note that if we left out the apostrophe, it would say Uncle Bob dotted all the is, which would be weird. Or consider this. The grades included 6 A's, 4 B's, and 7 C's. You don't want to talk about 6 as, so you put the apostrophe in there. And yeah, the B's and C's aren't terribly confused, but we want to be consistent. Let's look at another sentence that's kind of the way people often use apostrophes. Of all my uncles, Bob is the best. Do I need that apostrophe? Is it confusing without it? No, so fix it. Of all of my uncles, Bob is the best. So, what's the takeaway from all this? We have 4 not too hard rules. When you leave letters out, you mark that with an apostrophe. Add an apostrophe-s to any noun to make it a possessive, unless the noun already ends in s or z, in which case you just add the apostrophe. 4. Use an apostrophe in a plural only when it would be confusing or ugly otherwise. Follow these simple rules and Bob's your uncle. You won't make mistakes with apostrophes. You knew I had to say it one more time, right? Hey, if you like this, like it, ring the bell, subscribe, push the fireworks button. There isn't a fireworks button.